Good morning to aspirants, dear learners. In the today's class, we are going to discuss the features of a developing economy. అభివృద్ధి చెందుతున్న దేశాల ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థల లక్షణాలు. This is the point. Lesson today we are going to discuss. So generally, we can see there is a two buzzwords in economics: developed, developing. So developed means already past tense, completed. They achieved some level of progress. Developing, still they are on the path of the progress of the development. So clearly we can see several common characteristics prevailing in the following countries. Those countries are termed and treated as a developing economies. The following are the developing economies. There are several definitions and meanings about the developed and developing and developed. But as for general understanding, the countries which registered above the $12,000 per capita income per year generally treated as developed nations. Below that, countries are generally treated as a developing nations. But this amount or figure will be changed year to year as per the IMF records and UNDP and World Bank, several other international banks and other agencies. The following are the common characteristics which are prevailing in the features. Point 1, low per capita income. Point number 2, predominance of agriculture, high density of population, mass poverty, economic inequalities, low level of technology, underutilization of natural resources, poor economic management, dual economy, foreign trade. So these are the common features which are prevailing in the developing nations. Low per capita income. These countries are suffering from low per capita incomes. For example, take in India. Since 1950 to 1980, Indian economy registered a growth rate of at the rate of or less than 3.5% average growth rate. So these growth rate termed as Hindu growth rate, the word coined by the Professor Raj Krishna. So almost all these nations are suffering in the developing initial stages, suffering the low growth rates. So they are not only registering the low growth rates and also huge population, resulting into the less per capita income. Take an example, see the given below slide: Switzerland, Japan, Norway, Germany and other countries registered a lot of per capita income, huge per capita income. At the bottom level, the India registered the just $2,010 per capita income per year. So this is the latest information in the IMF reports 2020. So these indicates these countries are registering the low growth rate of these things. So because these nations have the low per capita income due to low capital, low investment, low savings, low production and productivity, all these are termed and treated or pushed these countries into the low level income trapped countries. Predominance of agriculture. This is one of the most striking features of the developing nations. These countries are studded with old, outdated, traditional, rural oriented agriculture. ఇంకా చెప్పాలంటే సాంప్రదాయ గ్రామీణ వ్యవసాయ రంగాల్లో బాగా ఈ దేశాల్లో కూరుకుపోయి ఉంటాయి. These agricultural main features is agriculture is primarily depend upon the rainfall. Unlike in the developed countries, this agriculture depend upon the irrigational facilities, man-made efforts, irrigation facilities. But these countries directly depend upon the rainfall, which is erratic, uncertain, irregular. Okay, a poet says, an economist says, Indian agriculture is a gambling in the hands of monsoons. భారతదేశంలో వ్యవసాయము ఋతుపవనాల చేతులు జూదం లాంటిది అంటారు. సో ఇట్స్ హైలీ ఎర్రటిక్. సో అనదర్ థింగ్ ఈస్ ద small size of land holdings due to heavy population, due to fragmentation and division of land holdings. Further it becomes a small and small which is unviable for cultivation purpose. Another striking feature is the about 50 to 60% of people are engaging or their main livelihood is agricultural, which is not viable. Another thing is they can cultivate this farming, they are farming in the traditional old outdated technological ways. Still there is country floor, wooden cart, handmade hand sickles, everything they can do cultivation in these traditional methods, which is low productivity, which will yield and also not cost effective. Another thing, marketing side, poor marketing, poor infrastructure, all these things made these factors pushed the farmer into vicious trap or vicious circles. You can see in our country, around 52% of the population are working in agricultural as their main stay of life, main livelihood. Their contribution to the GDP is only 14%. So this can indicate the poor marketing, disguised unemployment. These are all factors which are making the unrest in the agricultural, disappointment in agricultural, dissatisfaction in agricultural. This is the primary scenario we can see in almost all the countries, especially in India also. Third one, high density of population. High density of population, these countries are almost all we can see in and near and around the equator. That means tropical countries. High birth rates, now almost low death rates. So superstitions, early marriages, demographic fundamentalism, preparation for male child, all these things make them to increase birth rates or population. These countries are passed through the demographic transition stage or second stage or now entering to third stage. So population explosion. Another thing is the density in these countries, population density is more with compared to developed economies because supply of land is perfectly inelastic. భూమి యొక్క సప్లై పూర్తి అవ్యాకోచం. We cannot increase even inch of land. So every additional population getting down into the earth, getting on the earth, they are burdened to the economy. So this huge population can create a unemployment, inequalities, low per capita, low consumption. So almost all these things can push the person into the further the vicious cycle. India's population is around 130 crores. Ours is the second place in the world after China. But our geographical area is only 2.4% in the area, but our population share is 17.6% for the population. So you can see India is emerging as a populated country. Some economists say India is recording our population dividend, but that is another side of the story. But in the characteristics of developing economy, these are suffering with huge populations. The fourth point is mass poverty. These countries are suffering a major problem, that is the mass poverty. So widespread poverty seen everywhere, anywhere across the country. Countries all over the world, because the low per capita income, huge population, predominance of agricultural, low investment capacity, etc. The people are reeling under the poverty, and they are people in the encircled with the poverty trap. In 1944 ILO declaration reveals poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. అంటే ఎక్కడ పేదరికం ఉన్నా కూడా ఎక్కడున్న సౌభాగ్యానికి ముప్పే, అంటే పేదరికాన్ని తొలగించకపోతే సౌభాగ్యం సర్వైవ్ కాలేదు. సో దిస్ ఇస్ థీమ్ ఆఫ్ దట్ దిస్ థింగ్. సో ఇన్ ద 2006 in our country there was 31% of the people below poverty line. In the 2016 statistics reveals about 21% people revealed under people fall under the category of BPL. In the latest statistics shows about the 13 or 14%. Of course, these statistics may vary according to Niti Aayog and some other agencies. Fifth important point is the economic inequalities. ఆర్థిక అసమానతలు. illuminating glaring inequalities are seen in these countries across the world, because the intelligent, visionary, the learned persons, the foreseen persons can tap the opportunities early, they can invest wisely, and they reap the profits. Poor people, rural background, illiterates, traditional people, those are ignorant or illiterate people are fall below that poor level. So the thing here is the rich becomes richer, poor becomes poor. Nowadays we can see a film hero son becomes a hero, industrial son becomes industrialist, politician son becomes politician. But the rickshaw puller is not becoming a rickshaw, auto rickshaw driver is not becoming auto rickshaw driver. He is becoming a further poorer than the auto rickshaw. So he simply fall on the road. So this is the one of the most important thing is the trickle down effect is very poor operating in these countries. Because in 1986 Rajiv Gandhi, then the Prime Minister, openly agreed, in the top level what we spend 1 rupee, it reaches only 12 paise for the really needy poor people. అంటే అత్యున్నత స్థానంలో 1 రూపాయి మనం ఖర్చు చేస్తే పేదవాడికి 12 లేదా 14 పైసలు మాత్రమే చేరుతుంది. సో దిస్ మీన్స్ దిస్ షోస్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఆల్ ద పొలిటికల్ bureaucratic, some of the intermediaries, especially so many places, this amount is gobbled up. Finally, the reaching very low quantity, that too very delay, the unqualitative returns will approach to the poor people. So the next point, 6th point, low level technology. తక్కువ స్థాయి సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానం. Due to poor HR or inadequate human resource capital and economic capital, poor formation, investment, research and development, extension, etc., these countries are unable to prepare top-notch, world-class technology. Whereas in the advanced countries, due to high capital, high HR, high investment, they are always procuring or they are always preparing high level technology. These developing economies are using outdated, obsolete technology. By using this old, outdated, obsolete technology, production is poor quality, productivity is very less, price is more. So due to these reasons, the price is more, production is more less, so that the wide reach of the people is not possible to these products. So అందరికీ ఆ తక్కువ ధరకు నాణ్యత మనకు అందుబాటులోకి రావు. So in this country the research and development extension is very very poor. The 7th point is under utilization of natural resources. సహజ వనరుల అల్ప వినియోగము, అంటే తక్కువ స్థాయిలో సహజ వనరులు ఉపయోగించుకుంటాం. వేరే ద ల్యాండ్, వాటర్, ఫారెస్ట్, rivers, oceans, atmosphere, space, sunlight, etc., we are tapping very very less these qualities because of the low level of technology traditional societies. Say for example, every monsoon season the rivers are in spate, the excessive water is overflow into the oceans of Bay of Bengal. So we are unable to tap the properly these resources by producing, by reserving the water in the reservoirs for tapping for agricultural purpose. So the precious metals are deeply inside the earth. We are unable to explore and extract them for effective utilization. So these are the major reasons for underutilized resources. When the country is underutilized of the natural resources, ultimately it becomes poor. It is unable to enrich its property. So for employment purpose, GDP generation purpose, for equality purpose, the exploration of the resources, effective utilization of resources is one of the most important fundamental criteria. But unfortunately these countries are having some abundant resources, but in actual utilization they are very poor in utilization. That's why I quote, India is inhabited very rich, but utilization is very poor. So the 8th point is the poor economic management. సరైన ఆర్థిక నిర్వహణ లేకపోవడం. So these countries are suffering a lot of the problem due to institutional, technological, organizational, administrative problems. So in the few seconds ago I told you trickle down effect, because the poor things, we can take an example, the perfect example of the trickle down effect. There are the two glass tubes are there, glass tube A, glass tube B. In the glass tube A, so much unwanted dusts are filled in the tube. In the B glass, crystal clear, what's called a sand is filled. In the both glasses, I can pour 1 liter of the purest water. The A glass filters half an hour or 1 hour late the 250 or 300 ml water, the dirty water. In the B glass, immediately the same quantity of water what I dropped in the top of the bottom tube immediately reached with the same quality. అంటే వ్యవస్థల్లో ఉన్నటువంటి లోపాల వల్ల అభివృద్ధి ఫలాలు ఉన్నత స్థాయి నుంచి కింది స్థాయికి సకాలంలో సరైన మొత్తంలో సరైన వ్యక్తులకు చేరడం లేదు. సో దీస్ కంట్రీస్ ఆర్ సమ్ ద పూర్ ఎకనామిక్ మేనేజ్మెంట్. So in these countries, the fiscal policy, monetary policy, tax policy, administrative systems, entrepreneurial system are nowadays the ease of doing business or etc. So many the economic management policy making, policy formulation, policy implementation is not up to the level. So that these countries are, due to the poor economic management, poor people become poor, rich people become, so many glaring inequalities are clearly visible due to the poor, improper, irregular, unviable economic management. So the 9th point is the dual economy, dvandva arthika vyavastha. It's a very simple one. We can use the dual SIM. In a same cell phone, we can use the 2 SIMs. One is the Airtel, another is the another one. So clear thing is in an economy, coexistence of the organized and unorganized sector. Coexistence of organized and unorganized sectors. You can see my hands. This is the organized, unorganized. This is the systematic approach. The duties, the production, the productivity, times, their wages, their promotions, the systematic approach, everything is the systematic approach, organized, vyavasthikruta, unorganized. Take an example, an RTC bus and private bus. RTC bus has an organized, the ticket issuing system, conductor, license, timing, permit, charge, everything is in a systematic, predetermined, pre-prescribed manner. Whereas unless a private bus, their license, drivers drive more than 8 hours, they may be licensed or not, have different multicolors, different charge rate, untimings, due to several things. There is organized and unorganized sector coexistence. So this is widely, clearly visible. One side is the traditional sector, which is a more primitive, backward, uneconomic. Another side is the modern, sophisticated, purely economic, top class, everything is it. 2 things clearly visible in 2 sides of the 2 sides in a society. Yes, a financial dualism. In a remote places, there may be 30-40% interest per 100 rupees per year, whereas in a bank rate is it modern. So another one, technological dualism by Professor Higgins and social dualism by Dr. J.H. Bouquet. The different types of the dualisms. The last and ultimate point is the foreign trade. Foreign trade, these developing economies always suffer in the foreign trade with unfavorable balance of payments. Unfavorable balance of payments. Simply, unfavorable balance of payments means these countries' payments are more than the receipts. which arises due to international trade. Exports are traditional, more volume, less value. Their imports are less volume, more value. Take an example. We send 10 bags of rice. 10 bags of rice in the international market is around the 25,000 rupees. In the same time, we are importing an electronic gadget. It's about 25,000 rupees, a small laptop or a small Apple iPad. So these things we are exporting still in the traditional agricultural oriented products, industrial products, gems, coal, petrol, diesel, or some of the forest products, which are less precious in the international market, which fetch less revenue to the countries, export countries. While in the same time, these countries receive more valuable goods such as electronic goods, automobiles, cell phones, fuels, and some other things. So these countries always suffering with unfavorable balance of payments because these countries are unable to tap the resources effectively due to lack of the investment, lack of the capital formation, lack of the proper vision, lack of the good international relations. These countries are suffering from unfavorable balance of payments. So the above all said characteristics are prevailing commonly in the developing nations, so that these countries are called as developing economies. Thank you.